Welcome to AAPI Voice, a program that promotes Asian American Pacific Islanders engagement and participation. My name is Lisa Gray, and it's a great honor to have a well-respected community leader and a business leader, Jamie Shi, as guest host today. Jamie served as a chairperson for MAPAC. Our guests today are from APIA Vote-Michigan, President Richard Mui, and Executive Director Rebecca Islam. Jamie, Richard, and Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Yes, glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really nice to see everybody.
Yes.
Before we discuss some of the topics related to the current elections, could you give us a brief introduction of APIA Vote in Michigan, your vision and mission?
Thank you. Well, API Vote Michigan is a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization dedicated to increasing the civic engagement of Asian Pacific Americans in the Metro Detroit area and really throughout the state of Michigan. To meet those ends, we work on engaging Asian Americans in the civic process. So that includes registering to vote, finding their voting locations. This year in particular, registering for the census and making sure their census is complete. In addition to that, we also work on issue advocacy on things that are pertinent to the Asian American community. And lastly, we have a youth leadership program as well to help develop leadership among the Asian American youth.
Yeah, I've been involved in APIA Vote for about more than 10 years. I've been an advisor for a long time. So I've watched you grow up and do a lot of wonderful activities to help the community. Maybe you can help our audience, give them some idea what kind of activity you do to fulfill your mission.
Yes, absolutely. So right now we're in a full swing and just really being aggressive with the outreach. As Mr. Mui mentioned, voter participation is one of our priorities. We have a massive team of volunteers who are working around the clock. They're calling voters and potential voters, and they're also texting to make sure that individuals have the necessary tools and the information to be able to vote in this upcoming election. Our volunteers are making sure the APIA participants, API community members are registered to vote, and they understand how they can register to vote and where they can submit their absentee ballots and what their rights are at polling locations. We're answering questions around, what are their rights when they do get to polling locations. And we also have a huge text bank efforts going on as we speak right now. Earlier this week, we were able to send out 30,000 text messages in a single day. And additionally, with Michigan Department of State's Language Task Force initiative, we're working on hosting voter education seminars and webinars online virtually in targeted languages, so that in order to make sure that community members have those resources to be able to cast their votes. And hopefully through these collaborations, we will be able to reach more voters with trusted messengers about the important information about voting. And also next week, we are co-hosting a virtual event where we are inviting city clerk's office members to come and have conversation with community members so that they can ask those questions that are on the ballot and just get familiarized with city officials, which they wouldn't have otherwise.
Wow, wonderful. A lot of activities. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the introduction of all the activities, and thank you for all you have done for the community. API community has been impacted significantly during this pandemic. What has APIA Vote done to help the community, and what are the future plans?
Thank you for the question. We've, I think, taken on several activities. Initially, early in the pandemic, we actually combined with and partnered with other community organizations as well as the state of Michigan to combat some of the anti-Asian discrimination that was showing up nationwide, where they were referring to it as the Kung flu and the China virus and things like that. And we were really mindful of how that impacted our community. So we did some joint press conferences with the organizations as well as members of the state government. From there, we transitioned to providing some food boxes, care packages to members of the community that were food insecure throughout the pandemic. So while we're doing that, at the same time, we're still trying to fulfill our mission of making sure that they're registered for the census. or they're completing their census and helping them register to vote. And throughout the summer, then we continued that, as well as, again, visiting some of those mosques and churches that Rebecca mentioned to ensure that happens. And lastly, I think at the height of the pandemic, we helped fundraise. We did a fundraiser to buy some PPE for the Filipinos Nurses Association as well.
I know that API Vote over the years have always tried to educate people the importance of voting, right? To be civic participations. Why this year in particular you think it's so important? Some people may think, my vote is on one vote. It doesn't really matter that much. Why do you think it's so critical for APIA Vote this time in particular?
Thank you. That's a really important question. Needless to say, we all know there's an upcoming election. And as you know, this upcoming election is different. There's just so much at stake, just so much. And we are a nonpartisan group. So regardless of your political affiliation, I think that in order for us to truly have a democratic process, every single one of us must get out to the polls and vote, or vote absentee, drop your ballot into a drop box to make sure that our elected officials and laws that we live by are the ones that we are choosing. And I think that what the numbers show us from last election, that there was a huge number of eligible voters that did not take advantage of the right to determine how the government is going to be run. And someone whose job is to celebrate the right and encourage others to take this as an advantage. I think that it's a truly a tragedy that so many people didn't turn out to vote. And to be more optimistic, I think we're lucky that every 4 years we have this opportunity to alter and reinforce a political path of our country, right? And I think that right now we have another opportunity that lies for us right now. And I really hope that Michigan residents, especially APIAs, because we're one of the largest and fastest growing population in the state of Michigan, that we really do exercise this right and go out and vote, whether it's voting from home or absentee, and really just exercise our right.
That sounds great. And you talk about importance of voting for APIA community. Historically, how AAPI community have participated in the voting process?
Historically, the Asian American community, like other communities of color, have participated at a lower rate, unfortunately. And some of that, when they studied the reasons why, I think the top two reasons typically are that language access, so they don't feel comfortable going to the polls, don't feel comfortable interpreting the ballots or reading the ballots. And the second thing is really a lack of contact, so that many times neither one of the candidates, or multiple candidates, I suppose, reach out to them or community organizations. Those numbers have started to trend upwards, and hopefully we see then a subsequent increase in the participation by Asian Americans. But it has been low, unfortunately. And if I could just, if we think back to the 2016 election, the margin of difference between the candidates, President Trump and Hillary Clinton, was just over 10,000. And so I just saw a fact somewhere that the number of Asian Americans in Michigan that did not vote exceeded that 10,000. And so whether that, it's really a nonpartisan issue. So whether that strengthens, the victory for President Trump, or would have been the difference for Hillary Clinton, we can be that difference maker. So I think that's important that we get to those polls.
Wow, that's really unfortunate. Our voting percentage is lower than average, huh?
Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned some reasons for it. Language is one, and other reasons. So specifically, what are you doing or help others to do to overcome that, so we can really get more higher participation by the Asian Pacific American people?
Yes. So one of the ways that we're making sure that we facilitate a higher level of participation is by making sure that ballots are available in languages and other API languages in Michigan. In Hamtramck, there's Bangla ballots available. And as you know, our community is incredibly diverse in ethnicity and in the number of languages that we speak. So we have worked to make sure that there are sample ballots that are translated in different languages. I think it's very crucial. It's just a crucial step in increasing the number of APIA voters in the upcoming election. the possibility of someone participating in an election comes to a complete stop if the individual is not able to understand a ballot because it's not in a language that they're familiar with. So we're also encouraging people to drop off absentee ballots at satellite locations or at their clerk's office. And to ensure that everyone's voting safely, we're also training our volunteers to compile and follow guidelines to make sure that proper PPE is implemented at polling sites. And we think that it's so important to have volunteers at polling sites from the API committees. It raises kind of a comfort level for people who see voters when they come out to see people that look like them when they're casting their votes.
We have voters, if they have difficulties in getting the transportation or language access, any specific assistance on that?
Yes, I can answer that. So up until yesterday, the Supreme Court actually ruled out that third-party organizations will not be able to provide rides to the polls anymore. So we're really, literally as we're speaking, we're trying to revise our plans and how we're going to navigate around that, because in the past we have had calls from community members who needed poll rides to the polls. So we're just, you can do it at an individual level. Organizations won't be able to do it. We cannot pay anyone to do it. You can do it with your own car. So if you know a friend or a family member, please help them out if they need to get to the polls. Additionally, if someone has questions around where to cast their vote, or if they come across any issues at the polls, they can call the nonpartisan hotline. It's at 866-APIA Vote to get more information or get support. And we do have language access on those calls as well.
Yeah, thank you for doing so much. Then also the current situation, so everything is changing almost. Some of the rules are not applying anymore. So you have to do a lot and be very adaptive, I salute to you both, and also the API Vote.
Any additional thoughts all of you want to share with us today?
I would like to add, I think one of the common reasons that non-voters give is that it won't matter, the politicians are the same. And I would say, particularly here in 2020, that there's a stark contrast between the two candidates and the plans and the ideas they have. Again, regardless of which one you support, there is a real difference. And so it's important to make sure that your voice is heard, go out and vote. And so, yeah, I would say make a plan to vote, go vote, and then find 2 other friends to help vote. And lastly, building off what Rebecca said earlier, is you should know your rights at the polls. And so you do have the right to bring someone to help you translate any materials at the voting booth. And that you have the right to be free from intimidation at the polling booth as well. And so those are just some of the basic rights, but know your rights, and and don't let anybody deny you your right to vote.
Yes, thank you again, Lisa, for holding this platform for us to be here. I'll just like to say, we'll continue to serve and work with the community, and we ask the community members, API or not, to help us fill in those gaps where it comes to language access. And I always say, if this is not the year to get involved, then when else? A vast majority of our programs, as I mentioned earlier, is run through volunteers. So please, if it's not with our organization, get involved. This is the year. We all have a role to play in upholding our democracy. So please make sure you get involved in however in your own capacity, and you make sure you do your part and vote. Just like Mr. Mui said, please do go vote. And thank you again for letting us be here. Thank you.
First of all, I want to salute you for doing that. API Vote is doing a lot. And also, Lisa, I want to thank you to help your stations, and your media is helping the community tremendously to get the words out. And media is critical to get the message out. So this kind of forum is really wonderful. I want to take this opportunity, wear my different hat, my senior's hat in the community, to really help, to thank you, Lisa, for your dedication, your help, and also all of you.
I second that, Lisa. Yeah, getting out the information is very important, and, in particular to our community, that sometimes there's not that communication available. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. For everyone watching, thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe to our channel, and see you next episode.